Welcome to Intro to NEPA, Mitigation, Coordination, and Preferred Alternatives.
So we think about the existing conditions. We then overlay the impact and the activities, and then that helps us understand what the impacts might be associated with the project. And then when we think about impacts, they happen in two different phases. There could be construction impacts, and that could be fugitive dust or detours or closures. And then there's permanent impacts, and that's after the project's come and gone, and that could be right of way, filling in resources, what have you, adding capacity. And so there's different types of, severity, knowing that we're looking at those two different time frames. And then again, impacts could be to the natural environment, it could be happening to the social or economic environment. And under NEPA, the challenge is to try to avoid it where you can. And that's where our environmental resources will challenge the PMs and the other disciplines to say, could you avoid this sensitive resource if you just move over this way? And then the utilities will say, well, if you just move over this way, we'll be made whole. And so you have to find that sweet spot in the middle. And avoidance is great, but it's sometimes not practical. And so you can try to minimize that. And in some cases, no, the fundamental reason for a project cannot be achieved without doing harm to this resource. We lose, Susie will say, these trees, I love to keep them, but a lot of times the trees have to go. And so the mitigation is, well, maybe some new trees will go over here. And that's kind of how you do this iterative design. And the second bullet says part of the project means you need to address the mitigation at the same time you're delivering the project. And the most egregious part is maybe a noise wall. And we'll say, oh, we didn't expect that we were going to have to do noise mitigation. We don't have the budget for a wall. We'll do that next. We'll add the lanes and then we'll do the wall next. That doesn't fly with FHWA. It becomes a part of the project. It's not an afterthought. And so you need to deliver the whole thing at once. Sue, any other thoughts on or questions on impacts and mitigation? These get labeled in a NEPA document. I'll talk about documentation later on, but I think for us who are working on FIR and FOR plan sets, a lot of times these are captured as notes or specs or on the plan sheets. They become contract commitments and they need to be delivered and made clear for the team who's delivering the project.
Hey, David, this is Susie. So back to Ben's concept of what can can engineering do to make environmental's lives easier? So the quicker that we engineering and environmental as a team kind of understand what the impacts are, the quicker we can have the discussion of, can we move it 10 feet to the left? And the utility says, no, can we move it 12 feet to the right? That the quicker we can find those sweet spots that most are happy. We can't make everybody happy. And the quicker that we can get information to get through our regulation that we're all experts in, the quicker we can get these mitigation requirements in the project. And we're conscious of your budget. We're conscious of your time on budget. And so that's why we're often asking for weird information at weird times, because we do want to have it in the plan set. We don't want you to have to go to the Transportation Commission and ask for more money because we didn't realize there was going to need a noise wall, or maybe we did realize there was going to be a noise wall and we weren't talking. And now all of a sudden we've blown the budget, we've blown the schedule, and things like that. So having those discussions, really, the earlier the better, then we can all work together on what smart mitigation is.
That's a good point, Susie. And I think it's the idea of talking and collaborating. All projects evolve and go through iterations and start, the way it ends looks completely different than what was originally hatched. And it's, whether it's scope creep or what have you, things get thrown in and taken out. And so the more that those changes can be communicated with all disciplines, the better those resource groups can help catch up, stay current.
I was just going to mention, the sooner we can get you guys to look at our plans and tell us the pitfalls, the sooner we can adjust and pull our limits back, change our approach, put in a different style curb ramp, whatever it is, to, help find that best solution.
Exactly.
And
then the other problem that I've seen about making environmental's lives easier, since, we're talking about environmental and it's all about us. No, I'm just kidding. Is that all of a sudden something is added at FOR that may make us start over. It's not just oh, well, you're halfway through environmental and we added this new thing. No, we have to start over for that new thing. And it may really jack up the schedule. So having those last minute walk-ons, really can throw our schedule back, which then manifests into blowing up ad dates and blowing up budgets.
So maybe that's a point where we can kind of give an example about history. And it's not, the historians aren't villains, but the laws that they oversee there's a lot of steps to them. And if something is added to a project, it may be obvious that there's nothing new historic about it, but regardless, we're submitting something to the SHPO saying, evaluate this concept, evaluate this definition. And they'll say, all right, we need 30 days to do this. And now with the definition changes, they need to go back to the beginning again. And so that's where it's hard to we're making such progress, and now you've made this small change and we have to go through another 30 days. So it's not, it's more of a procedural heartburn than kind of a substantive one, but that's just something that an example of us talking throughout.
So SHPO, State Historic Preservation
Officer. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I think that's just a kind of the most extreme example of having to work with one of our environmental specialists, but it's not just internal. A lot of times there'll be external stakeholders that need to be brought along too. And for CADXs, it could be completely within our building, within the second floor. But for larger, more complex projects, it's local agencies, or for permit projects, it could be private entities, but you might get not nonprofits or special interest groups. Maybe the motor carriers are interested. Maybe the Sierra Club is interested. Maybe it's a school. And so they're business groups. And so they all are, they know this road. This is their main street, and they've got ideas on how to fix things. And they're going to be very territorial when the state comes and tries to develop a solution without them being at the table. And so you have to bring them along. They know these areas very well too. And so they might be able to say, oh, this area floods on, this area backs up during rush hour because of this area. So you'll have technical meetings with them, but you also may have public meetings where folks are trying to engage as well. And then, so it does a couple things. It helps us get different perspectives, but it also builds trust with these external stakeholders too. We have to maintain long-lasting relationships with Aurora and Jefferson County and City and County of Denver. And so you may be able to deliver a project without them, but it might set you back for the next project. So if you can demonstrate that you can work collaboratively with them on developing environmental projects, then they might be more willing to partner on some innovative things in the future. So these are all the steps that we go through. You know, for NEPA, you don't have to pick the one with the least amount of harm. You just have to show that you've gone through the process and you've taken a hard look at all these options, and that you've given the public a chance to weigh in. The public, it's not a vote, and it's CDOT and it's FHWA that makes the decision. And we're looking to see which one that best fits the purpose and need. And so, you know, thinking about I-70 East, there were a lot of impacts, a lot of significant impacts. I think we relocated 50 homes at least. And so it may not be consensus, it may not be unanimous, but we do make those sometimes hard choices.